Just being courageous, you're being fearless, as our sermon series said, and you're standing up for Christ in so many ways. We saw this past weekend by members making masks for our first responders, those doctors and nurses serving in our hospitals. We also saw it in one of our members by the name of Greg Rogers, who thought of a very creative way to share his faith during this time. We brought him in for an interview earlier. Watch this, you're going to be encouraged by Greg and his story and how God just led him to share his faith in this time. Greg, thanks so much for coming in and being with us. Tell me, how long have you been a member here at Prestonwood?
I've been a member since going back to 1993.
Really? So you were at the old location?
At the old location. My wife was actually before that. She goes all the way back to Fritz Park.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Did y'all meet? Y'all met here at Prestonwood?
We met at Dillon University.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're a member of what Bible fellowship class?
We're the journeyman class with Temple Weiss.
Sure.
Little shout out.
So you've been introduced recently. Channel 8 did a special on some of your chalk drawings, and tell us how that came about.
You know, honestly, it was me going into the garage with my wife, Amanda, and we were deciding, just like everyone else during this Corona time, what are we going to do? We've got to fill our time somehow. So we were going to clean the garage, and I found the little bucket of chalk that you have with your kids. You know, growing up, my kids are, one's graduated from Baylor, the other's a sophomore in high school. And I thought, well, I'll just go draw, see what I can come up with. And some folks came by and saw what I was drawing and said, we need to give you some more colorful chalk. So they went and brought chalk for me to use.
And so you were using the whole sidewalk just to portray the life of Christ. You did this during Easter, I think?
Well, when it started, actually, it was about 3 weeks before Easter. And I did a work by Surratt, which is a day in the park, I think it is, what it was called. And I did several famous works after that.
Now, has that just been a hobby for you, drawing, artistry? How long have you been doing that?
My oldest started an art class at Trinity Christian Academy, and I thought, okay, what I'll do is I'll start doing his homework with him. So I'd start sketching and doing the sketchings he did so that we'd have something to talk about.
Sure.
And then my youngest got into drama, and I thought, okay, well, maybe I can take this over and do some of the sets. And before I knew it, I was designing sets and painting backdrops.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
And had you ever done the sidewalk chalk thing, or was this your first shot at it?
This is my first shot at chalk.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
So you do those starting out, and then I guess Easter's coming and you get this idea.
Right. Yeah, and I decided, okay, well, let's go ahead and depict the Easter story, and did everything from the triumphal entry to a famous painting of him praying in the garden to the Last Supper, and a couple of ones about the resurrection and all. And it just took off. We started having people coming by and saying, okay, since we can't go to church, why don't we do our church here? So they were doing that. And
Were you shocked by the response?
oh, absolutely. We had some days when we'd have 10 or 12 cars out lined up in front, and they would just kind of wait for one person to leave with the social distancing. They would leave, the next car would pull up, people would get out, take pictures, and go. We had, I think, about 200, 300 people on some days coming that week.
And you said some drove as far as
45 minutes to an
just
hour
to come see
away.
it. Now, did you come out and share verbally the message of Christ and ask questions?
I did. In fact, I've done that the whole time that we've been doing this. In fact, the week of Easter, the gentleman from Kimelon was there. And it was interesting because I ended up asking him the EE question, what would you do if you were to die today and stand before God? And he said, why should I let you in my kingdom? And he said, well, I've been in church my whole life, but I tell him that I've been as good as I know how to be, and I would just beg him to let me in. And I told him, okay, well, maybe we should go through this again then. And we went through the whole story of Easter, and at the end of it, he goes, would you do me a favor? Would you write me all the verses down in chalk on one of the open panes that I still had there about all the verses that go with these pictures? Because tonight I need to go share this with my 4 sons. And so for all I know, that night he went home and all 5 of them came to Christ.
Wow. Now, have you ever been that bold in sharing your faith, or is this something that for you, I'm sure, that just made it real easy?
For me, my life has always been about sharing the Lord with people. So I would say, but this was a new way to do it. And it was another way for God to say, okay, wait a minute, let's try it a different way now. The interesting thing about us getting in with WFAA and having that film was that people had been calling the news stations for 2 or 3 weeks, asking them to come out and look at the art, and they all said no. And then it came to Easter, and then someone had called them and they said, yes, we're coming. So it was like God was saying, no, that's not the week. This is the week. This is the one I want to share.
Incredible.
So
What'd your kids think? Here's Dad. They got into this just when I was in high school and helping me, and now this is kind of taking off. What they think?
they know I like to try new things,
Yeah.
and I'm always looking for a way to share the gospel. And so they just looked at it as, okay, here's Dad sharing again.
Yeah, what a great witnessing tool. You know, we're always encouraging people in our church to look for ways to share the gospel, to pray for open doors and opportunities to present God's love to people. And what would you say to our members who are watching this interview right now, who are saying, man, I don't do chalk, I'm not that creative, but they want to share the gospel. How would you encourage them?
Well, I think as much as anything, it's, we said just a second ago, we pray for God to open doors for us. And the truth is, God has already opened the doors. It's more about us recognizing the ones that He's opened. And then we need to pray that God will give us the courage to step through those doors. And I've always said to people, when it comes to 5 means of growth as a Christian,
Sure.
A lot of people think, okay, I'm going to fellowship because I enjoy doing that. Worship, I can do that. Prayer, Bible study, evangelism, that's the one I'm going to do when I'm ready. And my encouragement to people is to start with evangelism. Because God's going to give you the right person to share with. And if you share, then what ends up happening is you recognize that God's got to be a part of it. It's not about you, so you start praying more. Then you say, God, I want to be a part of it, so let me learn your word a little bit more so I have something to share. And then suddenly your worship is not something that we're worshiping based on what someone did 500 years ago. It's what God's doing in and through and forward by us. And then we're fellowshipping. We're not talking about football. We're talking about what God's doing in our lives. So it's a deeper thing that happens when you start with evangelism.
That's
can still
awesome.
talk
So
about
you have
football,
any new plans?
football's been
What's
forever.
next for your chalk talks? Are you hanging it up for a while?
I was
what's
actually
next?
asked to do Pentecost.
Oh, wow.
And this was by a lady who, when she filmed what happened at Easter, it was viewed, I think, 1.5 million times and shared like with 85,000 or something like that. I'm like, okay, so yeah, let's do Pentecost.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do Pentecost, a famous work, and then I'm going to do my own rendition of it and see where God leads.
That's so great. Well, Greg, thanks for coming in and sharing your story. And I know it's such an encouragement to so many people. And I tell you, it's an encouragement to our church to see you living out your faith like this and sharing our faith like this is really cool. So thanks so much.
You bet. Thanks for the opportunity.
Isn't that great? I'm telling you, story, sharing his faith, just so bold and courageous.
Okay, y'all
And
go
again,
eat.
we can
It's
tell
gonna get
story
cold.
after story after story of you, Preston Wood, and the way that you've been living out your faith like